Welcome on Texas football. It's time for State of the Program, our weekly address. Mine and Rod's giving you guys the scoop on what we think is going on behind the scenes and looking at bigger picture issues for the University of Texas each and every week, brought to you by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. All right, Rod, we got to start with what's going on right now. It's the portal. This week, what's happening? It's not just the portal, it's the NFL draft.
Yep.
It's going, staying. We don't know. For a lot of guys right now, Steve Sarkisian getting ready to meet with a number of them that have NFL decisions. We've already known Xavier Worthy already made his decision and announced it publicly.
Yep.
But there are others to come. We're waiting on JT Sanders, Adonai Mitchell, Jonathan Brooks, all expected to make decisions. Jaylen Ford could come back, but don't think he's going to. David Benda and Jake Majors could come back. We believe Majors is definitely coming back. We've heard positive news on David Benda at this point. But here's the all told, okay? Right now, Texas next year is set to lose 6 starters on offense and 6 starters on defense. On offense, Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Jordan Whittington, JT Sanders, Jonathan Brooks, and Christian Jones. On defense, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, Jaylen Ford, Ryan Watts, Jaron Thompson, and Jahdae Barron. Look, Texas has a big situation in front of them, but I want to start with what we just talked about as far as the going and staying. You've actually dealt with this as a teammate and see people try to make this decision themselves. What are these guys going through right now? The Adonai Mitchells, the Xavier Worthies, JT Sanders. What are all of them thinking right now?
You know, it's such a different landscape now than it was when I played, right? They got NIL that they can consider, right? If they do come back, I think in my day, it was more desperation that I'm going because I got to get paid for these reps because there's so few of them, right? You only guaranteed so many reps in your career. The sooner you can get paid for them, the better. Well, you're not getting paid necessarily through NIL, but you can be compensated for your name. Like, so guys can make some money. They can actually start saving some money and making good money in college. So it makes things a little bit different. And also I think they're getting better advice than the guys got back in my day. Now they changed it. Now it's when you do put your name into the, I believe they got an evaluation board for the NFL where they would tell you where you're projected potentially to be drafted. And now I believe the only draft grades that come back for you are first, second, and go back to school. And they used to try to give you a more thorough draft grade. Nobody actually knows what's going to happen in the draft. The teams don't know what's going to happen in the draft. So, those draft grades, I think them giving you a first or a second round grade and back to school, it's a safer I think option for the players that, hey man, if you're not going to be drafted in the first round, if teams aren't looking at you in the first 2 rounds, you need to go back to school. There's a chance for you to increase your draft stock, but also you need to just get your education and focus on that. And you'll also, you can become a great player, obviously, and make it to the NFL later. Now the emphasis also in the NFL now is on the second contract, so guys don't leave anyway because they want to get to the second contract because now the rookie wage scale has pretty much capped what you can make as a rookie. So your agent will tell you, or your advisor will tell you want to get to that second contract. So that's also something to consider. If you are being drafted high enough, you start thinking about the longer money for these guys. And like I said, they're getting better advice also from their representatives. They don't have agents just yet. That happens when they become professionals, but they do have representatives in the NIL space. These representatives, I believe, are acting agents. They just don't act as agents for them for that particular NIL, those deals and in that competitive world, but they still have those connections. And I still think they can give that advice. So I think they're better informed about what the NFL thinks of them too.
Yeah, I look at it and they have these tough decisions ahead of them. But are they really? I mean, JT Sanders is a great example. He goes this year. He's probably the second tight end picked, second or third tight end picked behind Brock Bowers. Can he really appreciably improve his stock by staying another year? Or, I mean, probably could in the blocking realm, right? We've talked about that. That's not his strong suit. But at the same time, how much higher could he possibly go? I think some of these guys, like Adonai Mitchell, even Jonathan Brooks, they're they like the University of Texas, by the way.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's one of the pieces. They've all had successful careers.
Agreed.
They like their team, and that is the struggle they have, right? Because they like playing at Texas. Who knows if they're going to like playing for the Carolina Panthers? You know what I mean? Because that's right. I mean, that's part of it. You just
that's
don't.
real.
I mean, you now wherever you go, you'd probably be excited to be playing football still at this.
Right.
Career. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to knock any NFL team.
No, but it's different. It's different. You're right, Bob. It's different. Trust me. It's a business, and you don't have the circle of friends and the carefree, feel, and there's not the family feel that you have in college because you're a professional. You're being paid.
Right. Another guy we didn't even mention, Rod, that has a decision to make, but we think we know what it is Quinn Ewers, a young man out of South Lake Carroll, finished his second full year at Texas. I had been told 90-10 that he was staying, went up to 95-5. And I think after the game against Washington, he did not have that transcendent performance that might have pushed him into the first round. You think that's the right move for Quinn Ewers to stay?
But it felt that way. He was referencing next season with the Longhorns as if he was going to be there. CJ Vogel did a great interview with Ryan Wingo at the All-Star game. And then Ryan Wingo mentioned that he can't wait to get there and catch passes from Quinn. And I was like, what is he just saying that? Or did he talk to Quinn about that? I wonder, it's interesting. It was just casual. He just said it, can't wait to get there and start catching passes from Quinn. It was very casual. And maybe he just said it, throwing it out there. Or maybe, hey, Quinn sent him a text like, hey, man, can't wait to work with you. All right. Can't wait to get it started. Whatever. Who knows? I think Quinn's coming back. And I think Mel Kiper said it. Probably about 6 weeks ago, Mel Kiper, when asked about Quinn, he said he believes that he should come back to school. And you've talked about him there are a few things that he needs to work on to refine his skill set, getting through progressions a little bit quicker. As you work through progressions with better footwork, better mechanics. Hell, we may be even talking about his release point on RPOs after the Washington game, right? Is that too low? So there are things that certainly Quinn can work on. That obviously, Dan Orlovsky, I heard him mentioning a subject that you brought up about the back shoulder fade on the last play and how open it was, and a quarterback, if he'd have thrown it, the paint ball in the right spot, potentially could have been a game-winning touchdown for Texas. And it was open when I went back and looked at it because the cornerback was playing inside leverage, and he was playing kind of the D. He was playing off coverage and inside leverage, so he was basically trying to defend anything deep into the end zone. And I think, honestly, looking back at it, Bobby, and you talked about this, and because you said Coach brought it up with you as well. Maybe because Texas hadn't put that on film, why would you defend it?
Yep.
Why would you, as a cornerback, as a cornerback? I don't defend stuff I don't see on film. I don't defend ghosts, as Sark says. Why the hell would I don't defend a ghost? If you don't run that route, I'm not going to even worry about defending it. If you never ran the 15-yard comeback on film, why the hell would I be worried about it? So
they didn't have Xavier Worthy was injured a little bit.
That way.
In retrospect, I mean, I tried not to make a big deal of it prior to, but he clearly didn't have full juice on Monday night laterally. You saw him do some stuff downfield, but he just couldn't do the comeback stuff. It's just he couldn't do it, and that's one of those things that it is what it is. But Ewers. Certainly, that pylon throw, as Brian Irwin called it, is exactly what was called for there. But woulda, coulda, shoulda. I really want to take that and talk about. You mentioned what he can improve on, Quinn Ewers, and it's his lower body strength. It's just getting older, right? I mean, a lot of that is, and I think going back to it, it's his red zone play, and Steve Sarkisian red zone play calling. He's got to get. Not only does Sark have to get better at it, but I think part of it is Sark was not willing to really put the ball in harm's way with Quinn very much deep in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like there was no, to your point, there was no pylon call all year. They didn't really test people in the red zone as RPO throws, a lot of it, over the top stuff, things that were not necessarily going to change the flow or the rhythm of the game. Texas is going to get points one way or the other, right? And I think Quinn, is part of his next step in his progression, has to start kind of learning when to rifle it in there on the goal line, right? That's the piece that I'm talking about.
Great
Rod,
point.
you think? All right. Look, we say go and stay. The guys that are all looking to go or stay. I'm going to ask you the two really that I think are the biggest names right now, because I do believe Adonai Mitchell is likely to go pro. I mean, he was mocked in the CBS mock draft on Wednesday, going number 24 overall. If you're a first round pick,
you go.
You should probably go, right?
You go.
And so,
you go. You go.
And so I don't want to. Nobody's trying to convince these guys otherwise. So the two that seem to be the most interesting at this point, at least, are JT Sanders and Jonathan Brooks. Sanders, like I just talked about with his situation, and then Jonathan Brooks, the running back who 10 games into the year got tore an ACL, but at that point, some people were saying he's going to be the best running back in the draft.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on both of those guys, and whether or not, if you were advising them, not saying that they're advisors, but if you were advising them, you think you tell them to go or stay, or, I mean, I know you want them to play for Texas, but if you're truly advising them, which way do you lean on this?
Yeah, that's, both of these guys are in positions that don't have really high positional value in the NFL.
That's true.
Right? Tight end, like they're premium positions. They're just drafted higher at that quarterback, right? Quarterback's a premium position. You can be the sixth best quarterback in the draft and still end up being a first rounder or a second rounder, because it's a premium position, and teams are always trying to get themselves a quarterback. Left tackle is a premium position, edge rusher, premium position, wide receiver, tight end and running back are not considered premium positions anymore. Well, not anymore. I don't know if they were ever considered premium positions. I take that back. And you can go look at the positional value. You want to go look at just kind of a raw estimate. You go look at the franchise tag values. That's kind of the overall average of the top players paid at that position. And running back is at the bottom. Running back is down there with kicker and punter. All right, we talked, and I think we've talked ad nauseum, and most people have, about the devaluation of the running back position. So if you're Jonathan Brooks and you're looking at teams saying we may draft one or two running backs in the first round, but they got to be Bijan's or Jahmyr Gibbs. They got to be those types of guys. Then he's weighing coming off the injury. That's also going to devalue. So the position is devalued already, and then he's also devalued coming off the injury. And I just wonder, you trying to come back off an injury is tough too. At one point, he's really high on a lot of people's draft boards. That's going to be up to his representative to try to figure out how high is he on the draft board, and then weigh that against the value of the running back positions. Also, how many running backs are in the draft, and how many running backs are they going to take ahead of Jay Brooks? Right now, Jay Brooks is looking like he may be a late round pick that somebody may take a chance on as a project. What's fortunate for him is that coming off the injury, they've expanded practice squads now in the NFL. You can stay on practice squads longer. They're really flexible with that. So you can keep a guy, as you say, developmental project. Like, no, I like this guy. I can take a flyer on him. We're going to sit him down for a year and a half, 2 years, let him get healthy, and we go. And I do believe a team will do that with Jay Brooks. But I think right now, he's not going to get drafted very high just because running backs don't get drafted that high. They're coming off the injury. That's going to take him from the first 2-3 rounds down to the middle to the late rounds at best, in my opinion. JT Sanders is a little bit different. JT Sanders is not a premium position, but he's a premium athlete at that position, and he doesn't have an injury risk to worry about with Jay Brooks. And I think he is considered, like Jay Brooks, he's considered one of the top 2 to 3 guys coming out of his position, or at least he was, and he didn't have the injury to worry about. So I think JT Sanders, I think his decision is easier, because the only thing they're going to knock him for is he's not a great blocker. The NFL is a passing league. You know what I mean? So they're going to value his ability as a pass catcher more than his inability to block. And NFL coaches will say, man, we can teach that in the classroom. He's got things we can't teach our coach. He's got size, speed, hand. He's got things we just cannot teach a coach. We will draft him and we'll teach him how to block. The NFL, they're famous for having that kind of cocky arrogance about themselves. That, oh no, I can teach them that. And I think they can. So I think he'll get drafted still in the second round or wherever the tight ends land. Brock Bowers will be the first tight end. I don't know if he'll get a second tight end drafted in the first round, but I will say, I think that was last year, actually. It was last year or 2 years ago. There was a run on tight ends, really high up in the draft, like in the first 2 rounds. It is becoming more valued by a lot of these offensive innovators because they understand what a matchup advantage is, and JT Sanders is a matchup advantage. So JT is in a way better position than Jay Brooks. He's gone. Jay Brooks, I'm not sure about because I think the reality is he's going to get drafted late if he's drafted, middle to late at best.
I'm interested in hear what you have here on Jonathan Brooks and JT Sanders. We talked about them, but Jaylen Ford did not have a great year this year compared to last year. But I want to we talked about the Xavier Worthy injury and obviously Keelan Robinson was injured. I want to disclose something now. Y'all know that, I mean, I know we didn't talk about this ever, but Jaylen Ford had a hernia issue ever since the Oklahoma game.
Wow.
Right. I mean, people don't realize that.
I didn't.
But and the film won't necessarily say that, right? But if the scouts done their work, they'll find that out and figure out that this has happened. And one of the reasons why some of those production issues came off. But look, he may have been higher last year than he is this year because of that. And that is a telltale sign of what you're risking at some level.
Yep.
Players, right?
Great point. Yes.
And so I feel like that should be put out there that there's a reason some of these guys are looking to expedite going pro because you may not know what's next for you the next year. Brooks clearly one of those guys. Jaylen Ford certainly. I don't know exactly if he's going to need surgery or anything on the hernia, but it is something that to watch for. All right, Rod. Before we go further, I need to say thank you and want to say thank you to our sponsor, Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. He's been helping injured Texans for decades. He and his firm. Give him a call at 512-280-0800 or visit them at loweylawfirm.com. If you've been injured in a car wreck, motorcycle crash, truck wreck, give him a call, 512-280-0800. He and his team give free consultations to you and yours if you're interested. All right, Rod, I had other things to ask you. I mentioned that 6 and 6 guys leaving, basically, we think at this point. 6 offensive guys, 6 defensive guys. Theoretically, that means Texas is going to go into the SEC with 5 starters on both sides of the ball returning. Okay? Now, let's take a little bit of that right now. We know, for example, that Andrew Makuba is essentially a 3-year starter from Clemson. So he counts. Matthew Golden's a 2-year starter at Houston. So that's adding some depth and experience, right? They may need to go get more in the portal. We know they're going after a defensive lineman, a wide receiver, and another defensive back at least, as well as any other major player that comes available they might look at. But what do you think about that number, 5 and 5 going into the SEC? Does that cause you any concern not being the most experienced team going into a big time league like that?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're losing so many key guys on both sides of the ball, I think there's a little anxiety just because there's talent there, but they're unproven commodities for the most part. On defense, I feel like guys should have more experience because they rotate so many guys. So I feel like on defense, even though you're losing your front line, you're losing 6 frontline starters who have been multi-year starters for you. They have consistently rotated guys in critical moments. So we're not talking about just late in the game or early in non-conference games that don't matter. No, they're rotating guys in crucial conference games, right? At times when the game's on the line in critical moments and the fans don't even like it. They're like, hey, it's the fourth quarter. It's a crucial drive. Why don't we have the starters in? So I feel like defense should be cushioned by the experience they have from some of the guys that they've been rotating. Offensively, Texas is pretty strict on, at least Sarkis is pretty strict on his rotation of wide receivers and the guys that are playing the skill position on offense. I do feel like offensive line, losing Christian Jones, not as big of a deal because guys got some experience when he had injuries this year, and you're so deep on the offensive line. So I feel like on offense, maybe it's a bigger issue. The passing game will be severely affected, right? You got to figure out weapons and targets in the passing game because you're losing so many targets and so many proven veteran wide receivers who had great chemistry with Quinn Ewers. Were you talking about X-Men or J-Wid and JT, but then adding AD Mitchell, they had great natural chemistry. So that right now is my biggest concern is on the offensive side of the ball, particularly wide receivers and targets in the passing game.
Got it. That makes total sense. I think that I feel like experience matters so much, Rod.
It does.
We saw that this year, going through the ups and downs. The Byron Murphys and Tavondre Sweats have been through those ups and downs. They helped make that fourth down stop or that four down stop against Kansas State. Jahdae Barron against Houston.
Yeah.
You think back to all of those plays that happened over Adonai Mitchell, the catch against TCU. That is so many of the key plays and key happenings of the team throughout the year. And a lot of those guys are going to be gone. Xavier Worthy, JT Sanders, most likely, we think at this point still. I just feel like it's a lot of replacement. Now, it's Steve Sarkisian's job and his staff's job to get it above that 6 number coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they get another wide receiver in the portal, that becomes 7. Maybe they get another DB in the portal, that becomes 7 on defense. And all of us, or a defensive lineman that started a couple years somewhere, and those numbers start to get up to 7 or 8, perhaps. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you're not worried about experience as much as you are. Do you have the players that are replacing them up through the pipeline? And I think that's why the whole thing is different now. You know, that's why the whole thing is different, in my opinion. So I don't know the answer. I don't know all of the answer. I know that they've got to push towards that and get some guys going. That's my overall opinion, because I don't think you want to go into the SEC with just 5 or 6 starters on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and think about the environments in the SEC, right? You got to go on the road too. Those are different environments than the Big 12 environments, and usually young players, right? They struggle to be consistent on the road. Road environments are a little bit intimidating. Now, for these young guys, you would think it shouldn't, especially playing at a school like Texas, but it's different environment and different, I would say, fan attitudes. And there's a different level of intensity with the fans in the SEC, and that can affect the young player. So you're right about the inexperience as it relates to the experience that helps you, especially in road games.
Gotcha. I want to ask you about the NFL draft a little bit too. Who do you think? I was talking to somebody earlier today about who they thought the number 1 pick would be off of this team. Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. Those seem to be the 4 candidates. Even though other guys may have long careers like Jahdae Barron and Jaylen Ford. But of the 4, Murphy, Sweat, Worthy, and Mitchell, who do you think will be the top pick? Who's going to go first for the Longhorns?
That is good. That's a good question. I'm going to have to do a deep dive on that, actually. I'm a mock slut. I'll look at any mock draft. And you can have an egg as your avatar on Twitter. You did a mock draft. I'll probably check it out. And most of the mock drafts I've seen, honestly, it's AD Mitchell. Surprisingly, that's the first Longhorn taken in a lot of the mocks I've seen. Now these are mocks, so they don't really matter. But surprisingly, it's him. And Xavier Worthy is usually a little bit later. The Tavondre Sweat thing is interesting. And like I said, I'll do a deep dive on it. But in a quick nutshell, the D tackle position, like Tavondre Sweat, and his physical profile is becoming more and more valuable in the NFL. More of those types of D tackles are being paid big money. Why? Because teams in the NFL, they want to play 2 high safeties. They want to play with light boxes. The only way you can play with a light box, which is fewer defenders than they have blockers, if you have big humans like Tavondre Sweat who can take up 2 blockers, and then you flip the numbers advantage. And so those types of guys who can run stuff, but also can be pass rushers on pass rushing downs, they can also penetrate. And that's what Tavondre Sweat's proven he can do. Byron Murphy does it really well too. They're actually getting a lot more value in the NFL. You go look at those contracts. It's because schematically teams want to play with lighter boxes because they want to defend the deep shots downfield from the really good quarterbacks in the NFL. Well, not the ones that are not injured right now. And that's really what's going to play a role in his value rising, his draft value. Because right now, I think he might be the top D tackle on the board, but he's got to be one of the top 2 D tackles on the board if he's not the top one.
I'll tell you who I'm going to go with and who this person told me that they think is going to be the first one. Byron Murphy.
Mm.
He's the youngest of the group, along with Xavier. His issue is you got to remember, he's a talent maximizer and always has been. He graduated high school with an associate's degree. He'd already taken 60 hours of junior college credit through the academic program at DeSoto. He has been a motor that doesn't stop. I think that they're going to mix all of that stuff in and say, okay, this is the one guy we know is going to, at the very least, maximize what he's got. There's questions about Worthy's health. Mitchell, he hasn't been healthy but 1 year right now. Yeah. And then you have Tavondre Sweat, who kind of came on late. Is he going to be a 1 year wonder? Or is he going to be a guy that carries that same new attitude all the way through? Right.
Yeah.
So could be interesting. All right. I want to say this before we get going. I want to say thanks again to Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm, 512-280-0800, or visit them at loweylawfirm.com. Again, if you've been injured in a car accident, motorcycle accident, what have you, think you might need representation, give Adam a shout, 512-280-0800. All right, that's going to do it for this week's State of the Program, Rod. I want to talk to you over the weekend, if possible. And I want to go back and kind of grade the team.
I like that.
Like the quarterbacks, the running backs, like kind of give people a real sense for how we think they did in retrospect. And I'm not talking about, grading the Washington. I want to talk bigger picture with you, if you don't mind. So
I love that.
That's going to do it for this afternoon's State of the Program. I'm Bobby Burton, and that's Rod Babers. Thank you very much, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.